Here's something that doesn't make sense. You walk into your neighborhood grocery store on a Tuesday, buy your usual items, and walk out. 2 months later, you return to find the doors locked, windows dark, and a permanently closed sign taped to the glass. No warning, no alternatives, just gone. This isn't happening in one city or two, it's happening everywhere. From the wealthiest tech hubs to struggling Rust Belt communities, America's grocery stores are disappearing at a rate that economists are calling alarming. Industry analysts at Coresight Research project that approximately 15,000 retail locations will close in 2025, alone double the 7,300 that shuttered in 2024. And when we dig into those numbers, grocery stores are taking some of the hardest hit. This is the story of how America is quietly losing access to food, not through famine or natural disaster, but through a perfect storm of economics that's making it impossible for supermarkets to survive. And the communities paying the price are the ones that can least afford it. Let's start with a city that shouldn't have this problem. When wealth can't buy food. San Francisco has billionaires on every block, and tech campuses worth more than entire states. It's also rapidly losing its ability to feed its own residents. In early 2025, the Fillmore District Safeway finally closed its doors after a year-long battle with the community. The store had been operating for over 40 years. City officials tried everything. Mayor London Breed even committed additional police resources to keep it open. But the numbers told the story Safeway couldn't ignore. Records show the store faced 568 emergency calls in just 13 months. Security guards wore body armor. One private security contractor estimated daily theft losses around $7,000. That's over $2.5 million annually walking out the door without being paid for. But it wasn't just theft. The Fillmore store was sold to a developer for residential redevelopment. When a grocery store becomes more valuable as empty land than as an operating business, something fundamental has broken. And Fillmore wasn't alone. San Francisco's flagship Whole Foods closed in 2023. The Market Street location lasted barely a year. The emergency call logs read like a horror film, vagrants throwing food, fights, overdoses in the bathrooms. One man died from fentanyl and methamphetamine in the store restroom. Here's what makes San Francisco's crisis different. The city actually tried to open a replacement Whole Foods just over a mile from the closing Fillmore Safeway. It never happened. Why? Labor unions weaponized environmental review laws to block the project because Whole Foods isn't unionized. The lot has sat empty for over 7 years. So now, neighborhoods like the Tenderloin, Bayview Hunters Point, and parts of the Mission are watching their food access collapse. Some residents travel 4 to 6 miles for fresh groceries. In a city where median home prices exceed $1.5 million, food insecurity affects nearly 18% of the population. San Francisco's solution? Free food empowerment markets, where eligible residents can shop without paying, funded by $5.5 million in taxpayer money. It helps, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem. Companies have decided that operating grocery stores in San Francisco is no longer economically viable. The math, that doesn't work. To understand why stores are closing everywhere, you have to understand grocery store economics, and the economics are brutal. The average grocery store operates on a net profit margin of 1.6%. Not 16%, not 6%, 1.6%. That means for every $100 of groceries sold, the store keeps $1.60 as profit after paying for everything: the products, the employees, the electricity, the rent, the insurance, everything. Those margins have actually dropped in recent years. In 2020, grocery profit margins averaged 3%. By 2023, they'd collapsed to 1.6%, almost cut in half. Meanwhile, every single operating cost has surged. Commercial rent in major metro areas has climbed 30 to 50% since 2020. In San Francisco, grocers pay over $70 per square foot. In Los Angeles, it exceeds $60. Even in mid-tier cities, rent has become untenable. Energy costs tell the same story. A mid-sized supermarket that once paid $15,000 to $20,000 per month for electricity now faces bills exceeding $30,000 to $40,000. Summer months in places like Las Vegas or Phoenix push those costs even higher because of refrigeration demands. Then comes insurance. This is where the model truly breaks. Insurance premiums have surged 40 to 70% since 2020 inches high-risk zip codes. Some insurers have pulled out of certain neighborhoods entirely. forcing chains to self-insure something only the largest corporations can attempt. And theft. Reports indicate organized retail theft cost retailers $122 billion in 2023, up 9% from 2022. Some urban grocery stores report weekly shrinkage losses of $7,000 to $15,000. Security costs have doubled, with stores spending $5,000 to $6,000 per week just to slow their losses. When you're operating on 1.6% margins, there's no room for error. A single bad month can wipe out a quarter's profits. 2 bad quarters and you're looking at closure. Chicago, the city that's splitting in two. Chicago's grocery crisis reveals what happens when inequality meets infrastructure collapse. In 2025 alone, more than 20 grocery locations across the metro area either closed or announced closures. The pattern is stark. North Side, Loop, affluent suburbs, grocery stores are stable, even expanding. South Side, West Side, neighborhoods like Inglewood, West Garfield Park, South Shore, stores are vanishing. Operating costs in Chicago have made survival nearly impossible. Utility bills for large supermarkets exceed $32,000 per month. Commercial rents have risen 40% in 4 years. Theft-related losses have nearly doubled, pushing insurance premiums up 60 to 70% in high-risk areas. On margins already below 2%, Chicago became unworkable for retailers, so they left. The consequences fall hardest on communities where poverty rates exceed 25 to 30% and transportation options are limited. With each closure, residents lose another essential connection. Some households now travel 6 to 8 miles to reach affordable groceries. For many families, a single grocery trip requires multiple bus transfers or costly ride shares expenses they can't sustain. Food insecurity in Chicago has surged above 20%. Community organizations report overwhelming demand. The city's food culture is splitting into 2 realities, one filled with gourmet stores and private delivery apps, another where fresh produce is nearly impossible to find. Whole Foods briefly tried to serve Chicago's South Side, opening a store in Inglewood with $10.7 million in city subsidies. It closed after 6 years. Why? The company said it didn't meet margin targets. For residents, the closure felt like confirmation that public-private partnerships may not prioritize community needs. Chicago isn't facing a retail adjustment. It's facing a slow erosion of survival infrastructure. And the neighborhoods hit first are the ones least able to endure it. Kansas City, the closures nobody talks about. Kansas City is experiencing one of the most underreported grocery collapses in the country. In 2025, the metro quietly lost multiple supermarkets that once anchored entire neighborhoods. 2 closures tell the story. The Prospect Sun Fresh closed in August 2025 after the nonprofit operator lost approximately $5 million trying to keep the store open. They stepped in because no other operator would. The city had invested $17 to $18 million in shopping center infrastructure. Community builders received $750,000 in direct cash subsidy plus $161,500 in rent relief. It wasn't enough. Security alone cost $5,000 to $6,000 per week, with a single off-duty police officer running $60 to $90 per hour. Infrastructure problems, including a persistent sewer smell, drove customers away. Sales dropped. The operator couldn't absorb the losses any longer. 6 miles away, the Merco Plus Op closed at the end of 2025 after just 5 years of operation. The unified government had invested approximately $7 million to bring the Lawrence-based fresh grocer to the area. Failed redevelopment projects that were supposed to increase foot traffic never materialized. The store couldn't survive. Both closures returned their neighborhoods to food desert status. Together, they impact thousands of residents in low-income, low-access areas. Kansas City's geography makes every closure devastating. The metro is sprawling, divided by state lines, disconnected by transit. When one grocery store disappears, the nearest alternative may be 6, 8, or even 10 miles away. In areas where poverty rates exceed 30%, that distance becomes a barrier most families cannot overcome. Food insecurity has climbed to 24%. Demand at food assistance centers has surged to record highs. Meanwhile, suburban enclaves like Overland Park and Liberty continue to thrive, adding upscale markets while inner districts lose their last full-service stores. Kansas City's crisis isn't dramatic, it's incremental. But piece by piece, neighborhood by neighborhood, the city is being split into 2 realities. One with choices, one with none. The racial geography of hunger. There's a pattern to these closures that can't be ignored. A 2022 study covering 102 U.S. cities found something disturbing. If a census tract was redlined as declining or hazardous in the 1,930 seconds, it was 107% to 149% more likely to be a food desert today. The connection between historic discrimination and current food access is direct and measurable. Researchers at the University of Kansas Medical Center have been mapping food insecurity among patients since 2017. They've found strong correlations between rates of type 2 diabetes, modern food insecurity, and historic redlining. The numbers confirm what communities already know. According to USDA data, 8% of white households face food insecurity. For Black households, it's 21%. For Hispanic households, 16.9%. Grocery store closures aren't random. They concentrate in neighborhoods that have been systematically disinvested for generations. When a store closes in North Philadelphia, West Baltimore, or South Chicago, it's not just an economic decision, it's the continuation of a pattern that began with redlining nearly a century ago. Memphis, Baltimore, and the humanitarian crisis. Some cities are beyond the breaking point. Memphis and Baltimore represent what happens when grocery collapse meets extreme poverty. Memphis, consistently ranked as one of the poorest major cities in America, with poverty around 25%, saw more than 10 major grocery closures in 2025. Chains like Kroger and Superlo shut their doors, citing costs they couldn't absorb. In South Memphis, Fraser, and Orange Mound, entire neighborhoods lost their last major grocers. Residents now travel 7+ miles for fresh food, a nearly impossible task in a city where thousands depend on unreliable bus routes. Families are being pushed toward fast food chains and gas stations for daily calories. Doctors describe the result as a public health shockwave. Diabetes, hypertension, and obesity rates, already among the highest in the country, are climbing. Baltimore's story is similar, but worse. The city saw over a dozen closures in 2025, including key locations from Giant, Safeway, and Shoppers. Operating costs have spiraled beyond control. Some stores reported weekly theft losses of $12,000 to $15,000. Insurers pulled out of multiple Baltimore zip codes entirely. In neighborhoods like Sandtown, Upton, and Broadway East, where poverty exceeds 35%, the 2025 closures pushed residents into what analysts now call food dead zones. People are traveling 6 to 9 miles just to access fresh produce. For households without cars, this means 2-hour bus trips or relying on corner stores, where prices are 50 to 80% higher per calorie. Food insecurity in Baltimore now affects over 1 in 3 households. Local food banks report 40 to 50% surges in demand, but they're overwhelmed. Every grocery shutdown ripples out where jobs vanish. Foot traffic disappears. Crime increases. Neighborhoods lose economic gravity. Baltimore's grocery crisis is not a retail problem. It's a collapse of confidence. Retailers are signaling what residents have felt for years. The city's most vulnerable communities have been left with no economic buffer, no safety net, and now no food access. Why this is happening now? The grocery store model that worked for 50 years no longer functions. Multiple forces have converged to make the traditional supermarket economically unsustainable in vulnerable communities. First, the pandemic fundamentally changed consumer behavior. Online shopping surged. Customers who once made weekly grocery runs started ordering from Amazon, Walmart Plus, or Instacart. Foot traffic declined, especially in downtown and urban locations. Stores designed for high volume, low margin business suddenly faced half-empty aisles. Second, the rise of discount giants and ultra-efficient competitors has intensified pressure. Walmart, with its massive scale, can absorb costs that crush smaller chains. Online retailers like Shein and Temu are capturing market share with rock-bottom prices and free shipping. Traditional supermarkets can't compete on price anymore without losing money on every sale. Third, inflation hit suppliers and manufacturers harder than retail prices. Food manufacturing costs rose 28.4% from 2020 to 2024, while retail prices increased 26.3%. Grocers got squeezed from both sides, wholesale costs up, but unable to raise prices enough to maintain margins because customers were already cutting back. Fourth, the breakdown of civil order in some cities has made operations impossible. When stores face daily theft, when security guards need body armor, when emergency calls exceed 500 per year, the business model collapses. Retailers can't fix systemic problems. They can only leave. And finally, the housing market has stalled, hurting retailers that depend on home-related purchases. Housing goods and home furnishings have suffered as the housing market remains dormant. All of these forces hit simultaneously. Stores that might have weathered one or two challenges couldn't survive all of them at once. What happens next? The data suggests 2025 will be a record year for retail closures, potentially the worst since 2020's pandemic shutdowns. Coresight Research projects 15,000 closures against only 5,800 openings, leaving a net loss of approximately 9,200 stores. Some analysts believe even that estimate is conservative. UBS retail analyst Michael Lasser projected a net loss of 45,000 stores in the retail sector over the next few years. Many of those will be from malls, but grocery and pharmacy closures will account for a significant portion. What does this mean for communities? The USDA estimates that approximately 53.6 million people, 17.4% of the US population, live in areas that are low income and low access to supermarkets. That number will grow. Some cities are exploring alternatives. San Francisco's free food markets, community co-ops in Kansas City and other metros, municipal grocery stores, like the ones proposed in New York and Chicago, urban farms and community gardens in Detroit and Cleveland. But these are band-aids. They help individuals but don't fix the structural problem. The traditional grocery store model is broken, and no one has figured out how to replace it in low-income, high-cost, high-crime urban environments. The irony is cruel. America produces more food than almost any nation in history. We have the resources, the infrastructure, the technology to feed everyone. What we're losing is the last mile distribution, the physical stores that connect food supplies to hungry families, the silent emergency. This isn't inflation. This isn't just crime or homelessness or failed policy. This is all of those things combining into a crisis that reveals how fragile our systems have become. When grocery stores close, they don't just take food access with them. They take jobs. An average supermarket employs 75 to 150 people. They take foot traffic that supports other businesses. They take the gathering places where neighbors run into each other. They take the pharmacies where seniors fill prescriptions. They take the sense that a neighborhood is still functioning. And once they're gone, they almost never come back. The economics that drove them away don't reverse. The empty buildings sit. The parking lots crack. The neighborhoods slide further. Approximately 44 million Americans, 1 inch 8, are now food insecure, meaning they've run out of food in the past year before they could get more. That number is growing. The grocery store closures of 2025 will push millions more into that category. This is America's silent emergency. It's not dramatic. It's not sudden. It's just families, quietly, finding it harder and harder to feed themselves. It's seniors who can no longer walk to get groceries. It's working parents adding an hour to their day just to reach a store. It's children eating processed food from gas stations because that's all that's left. The collapse is happening neighborhood by neighborhood, store by store, family by family. And unless something changes, unless someone figures out how to make the economics work, again, this is only the beginning.